Welcome to the New Flat Rate Podcast.
The New Flat Rate!
For contractors ready to boost tickets, simplify business, and gain freedom. Today we sat down with Matt Maleske, the founder of CTM, Coach, Train, Motivate. And now your host, Danielle Putnam.
Hey there, I'm Danielle Putnam, president of the New Flat Rate, and hanging out with Matt Maleske. Matt's been a globetrotter. If you've ever seen him in the airport, all purple. Where have you been most recently, Matt?
Oh, most recently, Minnesota.
Very
And
cool.
we did some training out there a week and a half ago.
Okay.
But yeah, been to more than half the states over my career doing this stuff.
Well, what I love about you is Matt's in a neat season of life. He's like, I get a little antsy if I'm home too long. I'd rather be out on the road. And so he is on the front lines in the trucks with technicians, in the office with contractors. Every time I see you on social media, it looks like that you are constantly on the road. And I love that because that means that you're still so relevant for what's going on in the field and the different tools and technologies people are using. But more than even tools and technology, it's just still so human. And so today we're here to talk about the heart of the technician and share some stories about technicians and what's going on out there today. So welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, I was born in Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Yeah, northwest corner. It's a little town called Hellock, right by the Canadian border.
Well, I was in Duluth. Is that near where you were?
I don't remember how many hours that is from there, but I went skiing there as a kid. I was probably 8, and we went snow
Okay.
skiing. We went snow skiing in Duluth once.
Yeah, so I guess it was right on the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota right there. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
been
doing
a
some
hot
stuff.
minute.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love that. So Matt's company is CTM, Coach, Train, Motivate. And the motivate is so key and pivotal. So would you tell us a little bit more how CTM came about and what is it that you guys do to really serve contractors and technicians?
Yeah, we've always had a very hands-on approach. Way back early on in my career, I was tasked to be a sales and service trainer for Service Experts, which was a large organization across the country. And they wanted me to go on site to these companies and, work with the technicians on improving, their lead turnovers, maintenance agreement sales, indoor air quality sales, and auxiliary sales. And so, just developed a process to work with technicians. And, when we talk about like the heart of a technician,
Mm-hmm.
most technicians I work with, they do not want to be labeled salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to sell stuff. And so over the years, I've developed a way in which we can communicate with homeowners. So, the premise I always ask them is like, would you rather try to sell something to a homeowner or have the homeowner ask you for the sale? And of course, they always want the latter of the two.
Yeah.
So we teach them skill sets so that they don't have to feel so like this pressure to sell stuff. Them doing a good job and being thorough and working with the homeowner and communicating properly results in sales. And so whether, and I always explain to them, whether it's just a contact or something simple, a small part repair, that's a sale. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
we're salespeople, but we don't have to be salespeople, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's the pressure, right? If you feel like, oh, I got to pick up the phone and I got to make a sale. Like that's not
Yeah.
everybody's DNA. And if you're in front of the homeowner, oh, I have to ask for a special sale right now, or I'm going to get in trouble when I get back to the shop. That's pressure. Then we can't be authentic. And some of us just don't like that pressure. So do you have any stories that come to mind of any of your recent trainings being out in the field with technicians where you kind of saw a turnaround? Because it sounds like you do some technical training. I know you guys do management training, but also soft skills.
Well, it's mainly soft skills.
Okay.
We do very little technical training.
Okay.
I believe the techs are trained by who they're trained by and should be legitimate when they go out in the field. But when you ask that question, there's a technician that comes to mind. I worked with him actually a couple of years ago, and he was I was doing a lot of training with this company. And everything we do is on site. So we come to the company, we work with all the people in the company, deliver technician sales training, comfort advisor training, and management training, all the way. So it's like building the steps all the way through the business.
Yeah.
If you just train one section and that doesn't translate to the next group, which translates to the next group. We refer to that as the threading effect. You know, lining all of your departments in a row to create that unbelievable experience from start to finish. You know, I was talking with Matt just the other day
Mm-hmm.
about that, you know, and it's like if you think about one customer, one company's customer, and to take them from the day they call your company all the way through to a new installation of equipment. Think about everything that has to happen and come into alignment for that one
Yeah.
customer. And some of these companies have thousands, if not 10,000s of customers, you know.
Yeah.
So that's our kind of overlying premise when we do training. But I'll share a story about Juan. So he was with this company. To give you a little background, he had been in the field going on almost about 2 years of service. So he was a maintenance technician. We put him through the training, and he just was one of those guys where the light bulb went off. Like, you know, he was ambitious. He wanted to make more money for himself. He wanted to be pivotal in the company. You know, he wanted to be noteworthy. And
Mm.
so you know, I always offer myself out to help guys, you know, I always tell them I'll put 100% into you if you put 100% into me. So like, meaning if you call me, I'll call you back. If you have a question, I'll respond. You know, there's no limit to that. It's as much as you want to put into it, I'll put back to you. But I also tell them if you choose not to, then I'm not going to chase you down either. You know, so he was very understanding of that. So he starts calling me. When I mean call me, he's calling me 2, 3, 4 times a week sometimes, you know, and his main ambition was to have more lead turnovers.
Mm.
All right. And so, you know, we talk about that and, you know, gone through the process. And so I'm like, hey, before you go in and try to turn over something, like give me a call. Let's get a game plan let's get your mind right, your mindset right before you go out there and do that. So he started calling me, like, you know, and of course I just asked him, okay, so how did the call go? You know, what's your relationship with the homeowner? You know, how are you? What level are they? And what do you think? So I'm asking him all these questions, right? And so we're going back and forth. And you talk about from a trainer's perspective, you always want to see the guys have success. I
Yeah.
would say for the first 6 months of him and I working together pretty closely, 90% of his opportunities were no. You know, and I and to keep a guy motivated to say, hey, you know, because he was getting better, but it was
Yeah.
so raw to him. It just took him a while for him to get, you know, things in place. And so from like the 6 month to the 8th month, the calls got a little less and less. And I was always telling him, I always tell guys, you know, when it comes to closing and things like that, you got to get the no's out of the way and
Yeah.
allow the yeses to come. So I mean, I'm constantly just trying to keep him motivated. But he just was like, it didn't bother him. You know, he just kept
Yeah.
trying and moving forward. So we get to the months 6 to 8, 9 months, you know, and we're starting to see a little more success. And he's calling me less and less. And I'd say right now on his opportunity rate, he was probably turning over maybe 40% or 50% of them now. So like, you know, it's getting better. And obviously he's getting rewarded for that. So he's seeing some increase. So I hear less and less from we get to like, because I started with him in January. So we get to like November. So it's like the 11th month. And he calls me up. I hadn't heard from him in a month or so. And instead of me asking all the questions, he just gets on the phone and just starts going, da, 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 da. Here's what I got. Here's where I'm at. Blah, blah, da, da, da. And I started laughing, you know, like literally laughing on the phone. He's like, what's the matter? Why are you laughing at me? You know, he took it all personal.
Yeah.
And I said, why did you call me? And he goes, well, you said if I had questions to give you a call. And I was like, yeah, but you answered all my questions. You know what you need to do. Like, go do it. You just told me what you need to do. And he started laughing and he goes, you're right, man. But the culmination of that story is that
Mhm.
month he had 13 turnovers and 11 of them sold. And so, you know, that to me is like what we're here for. You know,
Yeah.
like to see
Yeah.
that kind of passion in somebody and seeing that success and seeing the energy that they feel and knowing that their lives are better. Because we always
Yeah.
say at CTM, we're not just trainers. We're people, you know. We're
Mhm.
here to help people. And whether it's the owner of the company or a comfort advisor or a CSR or a technician, we want to see them thrive.
Yeah.
And you know, and unfortunately, it's difficult over time. But I don't get many of these phone calls or these stories over time. But when I do, they're very impactful to me. You know,
Mm.
and so and that's what keeps me going, when they share a story about buying a new car or, or
Those are
being
my
able to
favorite.
afford to buy a house, like those things just keep me going and telling myself that what I'm doing has purpose and that's what we're here for at the end of the day.
What I love so much about your story, Matt, is if I'm correct, he was a maintenance technician when you were still working with him, and he was turning over leads from maintenance calls.
Yeah, correct. That was part of his role there. He didn't get he was doing very little demand service,
Hmm.
so it was just like when he was on a maintenance call, if it was a certain age and had certain conditions, and we just walked him through the things to say and how to present that to a homeowner.
Hmm.
And so yeah, to see that success over time is pretty awesome, And he's
Yeah.
not the only guy. I mean, I have other stories, but
Right.
it's pretty cool to see that. Pretty cool to see that.
Well, and when you can work with somebody long term like that and they keep calling you, it's just a testament to the relationship that you built with him. I know that the role of a trainer, it's an intimate role, like a coach. It's intimate. You get to know each other so well, and that's the person that you share so much with and you depend on. So, can you talk at all about windshield time? When you're riding in the techs, when the techs are out there alone all day long, to stay motivated, to be excited when the office is calling, hurry up, get to the next job, hurry up, finish up that job. And, they've got their family calling. When are you going to come home? Why are you still working? Why is it so late? Like, what's it like in the truck, the windshield time? What do you see there? How can you help the guys stay motivated?
Yeah, one of the things that I share with technicians when we go through the training is it's called the faucet theory. Have you ever heard of that?
No, share it with us.
Yeah, so this was something I learned from my basketball coach in high school. And just to give you a little perspective, basketball was my main sport. I loved it, played it since I was 7 years old. And when I made it to the varsity level, our coach was a guy that was like 6'4", big guy, and he had played professionally in Europe. So it just gives you a little understanding of where he comes from like a professional athlete, status.
Yeah.
And so he brought us into the first day of practice, once we made the team. And, he said, I want to explain to you the faucet theory. And he says, but first off, there's two things you have to understand and know before you're going to play for me on this team. Well, actually, there's three things. He said, first and foremost, you need to have a conversation with your parents and your family to not plan a Christmas vacation because we will be practicing during the Christmas break. He said, second off, you need to fire your girlfriend.
Wow.
And the guys are always like, what? And it's like, well, why do you think he said that? And then they all say it. It's a distraction,
Yeah.
you know? And he said, third, what's critically important to me is not only in life, but also in academics, you need to be focused on your schoolwork. So even though the minimum guideline for playing is a 2.0 GPA, you need to have a 2.75 GPA to play for me. And so he set the tone. He said, also, you're going to have to dress appropriately when we go to away games, meaning you had to wear slacks and a belt and a button-up shirt and a tie, because we're going to be professionals when we're out there,
Mhm.
representing our school, you know. And then he went on to explain the faucet theory. And, he said, just like in life and academics and your personal business, you can't live life like a faucet. You
Yeah.
cannot turn things on and turn things off when you want to. If you want to be really good in basketball, it has to be flowing through you at all times. If you want to be really good in school, it has to be flowing through you at all times. That really stuck with me over time. And so when I explain that to technicians, the question I ask them is, where does the call start for you?
Mm.
And they will give me all that. Well, when I get the dispatch, when I get, this, when I get to the house or, whatever. And I said, well, think about what we just talked about. When does the call start? And I said, if you really want to be good at what you do, when you talk about windshield time and thinking about and preparing yourself for the mindset of what you need to do in front of you, it has to be at all times. When you wake up in the morning, you should be thinking about how, and what you're going to do to perform today. It doesn't ever stop. And so the guys that can get that conceptual understanding realize and recognize that when they're driving and they're doing these things, they need to be focused on what's going to happen in front of them, and every call is an opportunity. And so what are you doing? And we talk a lot more about stuff. We always preface it with like begin with the end in mind. It's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Begin with the end in mind. What does that mean when you say the end? And a lot of times technicians have a hard time understanding that. And then we get them to wrap around and understand that it's going to be that conversation with the homeowner, and your recommendations or the turnovers or the accessory sales or whatever it is. You got to prepare for that before you even get to the customer's home. So everything along the way, every little thing that I'm going to explain to you, and I always tell them I'm crazy. I'm going to pick out every detail of your call, like from start to finish, so that you can be ready for these 10 minutes of time with the homeowner to go over their options. And that's where we kind of start with them. And so it's getting that mindset. And you talk about the motivation, that's how we help deliver motivation, because it's like there's so many guys I can speak to. I share Juan's story all the time to these guys. It's like, if you want to be like Juan, or you want to be like Smiley, these other guys, and I share their stories, that's what it takes to be one of those kinds of technicians. So, and at the end of the day, you're doing a great service for the homeowner. You will win because you will be generating more revenue and whatever spiffs and things that you can generate for yourself. And the more you're doing that, then the more the company wins, because they're getting more overall revenue and profitability as well. So, but yeah, it's kind of how it works.
Well, forgive me for grabbing my eyes here. I've got allergies and they keep watering as if I'm crying. I mean, but I could be crying.
Hey, if I moved you to tears,
I
that's
know.
good.
Well, because what you're painting the picture for is you are a professional, and it takes years to become an expert in any trade, any business.
Mhm.
You and we've been doing what we've been doing for years. It takes years to really hone in that expertise, but never taking off that mindset and that hat of professional. I am a professional, and this is my trade, and am perfecting my skill every day and working on my expertise. And so the question of when does it start? When does the customer journey start is really key. I love the motivation there of this is your skill, this is your expertise. Let's continue
Mm.
to be training when we're driving, when we're showing up. The other day we were at track. I don't know if I've told you this story before, but we were at track practice, and my daughter, the coach says, "Hey, you're going to do the standing long jump." And she'd never seen that, never heard of it. And he takes her over to the sand pit. He's like, "Here's how to do it." And he grabs a junior Olympian, and he's like, "Hey, Jordan, show Palmer how to do this." So Jordan goes and she jumps, and it was awesome. And we're like, "Oh, okay, cool. So Palmer's going to be like that?" He's like, "No, no, that's a junior Olympian. Palmer's never going to be like that." And he says, "But Palmer," and that's okay, because that was realistic. But he draws a line in the sand, and he says, "If you get to that line, Palmer, you will place." And so she says, stands there, she gets her form, she jumps, and it wasn't that far. It was like a couple inches away. About 10 jumps later, she hits that line. But it was the
Mhm.
coach. My point in watching that whole thing, my point of the story is the coach drew the line a little bit further than what she thought she could do. And when he drew
Mhm.
that line of, "Oh, wait, I can get there." And that's what you're doing. You're motivating them of, this is your expertise. This is your profession.
Right.
So it doesn't stop. The customer journey doesn't stop. Our growth and our professionalism doesn't stop. And I love that reminder, bringing that and keeping it strong in the forefront of our industry, because it's not just one service call to the next. It's not just show up. It's a constant climb.
Oh, always. It's interesting you bring track, because I was a track and field athlete for most
Good.
of my yeah. And so it was just funny you bring that up, because I went to kind of a smaller high school. I ran track and field for them as well as playing basketball. And we had a dirt track field, and it was a newer field, and it never got surveyed. meaning where all the lines need to go and where all the markers are. And I was a hurdler. So I could not practice my event at school during the week. The only time I got to run my event was at the meets.
Shoot.
And so the coaches I had, they were just high school teachers or whatever, but they had, done some research on things. And so all I did in practice was practice the fundamentals of going over a hurdle, one
Mm-hmm.
hurdle at a time. Just the way your arm comes forward, the way you close the back door as you come over the hurdle, and the way your leg kicks over. And that's all I could do to practice my skill,
Yeah.
But what that did was all that practicing gave me the ability to clear those hurdles within centimeters,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all I practiced was just the process of clearing a hurdle. Now I had to get my cadence down during the races,
Oh
but
yeah.
once I kind of figured that out and it became more mental memory, I was quite successful as a hurdler, even though I didn't have a place to practice. And so, sharing things like that with guys is what gets an understanding, once you figure something out and it works well for you, then you got that. You
Yeah.
don't need to practice that. So I mean, you'll practice it when the time comes,
Yeah.
but you don't necessarily have to sit there and go, what am I going to say? What am I going to do?
Oh
You know,
right.
everything I
Yeah.
everything I talk to the guys about being prepared for the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's like, and we ask a lot of technicians, we need turnovers, we need IAQ sales, we need maintenance, so all these things are going on in their head, but we try to compartmentalize it into like, get your little presentation down for when it's a maintenance agreement, when it's a
Mm-hmm.
turnover, when it's IAQ this or, whatever. And that way, when it triggers, you just flop out what you've already practiced.
Yeah,
And
you're
that's,
automatic. We
yeah.
we believe really strongly in scripts because we want to be able to role play and make sure that the technician is confident and prepared, and then they don't have to think about it. And the same,
Yeah.
sports is pivotal. And we could talk sports all day. I think sports is so important and such a blessing to
Mhm.
get to actually participate in sports as a child or, all throughout high school too, because it really does go into our work life. But that
Mhm.
perfection and that practice and the honing of the skill, even without being in front of the customer. And so in the mornings when you're role playing together as a team, when you're going through the scripts, when you're talking about scenarios, talking about the lead opportunities, even if there's not a customer there, you're not running the whole hurdle. But then when you're in front of the customer, you're prepared, your precision is there. And it's the same, bringing that same coaching and the practice element in there. So important. And I think it's
Yeah.
as an owner and manager, um, not everybody, I know that there's people out there that they're like, oh, that's easy for me, Danielle. But for me, it's not. Sometimes it's like, what do I need to train my team on today? But going back to the basics
Absolutely.
and the fundamentals is always good because we always need to
Always.
the process.
Yeah, I always talk to them about, I say this probably 15, 20 times in a 3-day training class about being aware of what you're doing on your call.
Hmm.
Because I do a lot of ride-alongs, as
Hmm.
part of our training. And so often it'll be like, okay, let's have you run a call. Let me see what you're doing. Then I'll run a call. We can see how it works.
Yeah.
And I always tell them when I'm running a call, or maybe I'll hop in and kind of take the lead from you if you're struggling. I might be sitting there yapping with the homeowner, and you're just like, they kind of get like this, like, like, shouldn't we be working right now? And it's like, I'm working. You guys don't understand. I'm working. Like, yes, we're joking around, we're having a good time, or we're sharing stories or whatever, but that all has a purpose of my outcome of what I'm trying to do. And I was
Hmm.
telling them it's like a funneling effect. They start out here, we want to funnel them down to the needs or whatever comes out of the call, but you have to be aware of what you're doing to get to that point. And so joking and laughing and telling a story with the homeowner, you just think I'm BSing, and I've had guys walk off and go get to work. And I'm like, you missed the whole point of why I was having this conversation with the homeowner, at the end, And so when we get in the truck, I've trained myself I can recall my entire call. I
Hmm.
mean, almost verbatim. So that's why I try to get in their heads. If you call me after a call that didn't go well or you struggled, but you can't tell me what happened or what they were saying, it's going to be very difficult to maybe we can come up with a better solution for next time. So being aware, having awareness of what you're doing on your call is critically important. Just like with the new flat rate, right? I mean, you know, you got to know you're going to be presenting these 5 options on something
Yep.
on every call. Like, why aren't you prepared with your script on how to properly introduce the homeowner to new flat rate and move forward with it, and but the guys just they struggle with that, so but it takes constant repetition. They got to practice and practice and practice.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were saying, like what did I train these guys today? Always you can go back to fundamental stuff, and you'll be shocked. I'm always shocked sometimes, it's like, I always laugh because I try to explain to people how the training works. It's not everyone wants CTM to come in and be the silver bullet. Come in. I
Yeah.
heard all this great stuff about you. Let's go knock it out. And I tell them it ain't going to take, I'll come in. You can pay me to come in for one time. You're going to see results and then they're going to trail off. That's just the way it goes. But if we come up with a plan over the course of a year or a number of visits, you
Mm-hmm.
start seeing results go like this. They go up, they spike, training, they drop down. Then they go up again and they drop down. And by the second or third training, where you were stoked at the initial peak, that's
Yeah.
where your team is performing at now every day.
Yeah.
And it's not dropping back down,
Mhm.
so they get more and more aware of what they're doing on their calls and expecting the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's like that in life. I mean,
yeah.
my chiropractor. You better get back in here if you want to keep those results. I know. I
I know.
know.
So you're getting me all fired up today. See, you're getting me excited. And I can't help it. I just start going off about stuff.
No, that's a really good example. Um, and it's worth it. It's worth it to train our teams because if we can eventually get to where we can stay up here, that's what we want. But we have to keep training. Let me look for a question here. I want to talk about the heart of a technician. So if if I was going to say, Matt, that technician needs heart, what would that mean to you? Or if you said, hey, we've got to work on your heart in this technician, like the heart of the technician, empathizing, caring about the customer. What's the true heart of a technician?
Well, I've worked with hundreds of technicians in my time and business owners and Danielle, I know you would agree with me. This trade we're in has some of the most amazing people, the most caring, loving owners
Yeah.
of companies, and they just almost every owner I work with just wants their team to be better and make more money and do the things that they and get the things they want out of life. And I mean, technicians, they are the salt of the earth, man. These are hardworking guys and gals that just want to make a difference,
Yep.
you know, and they just want to be appreciated for what they do on a day-to-day basis. And so I think all technicians, I can't say all. There are some that shouldn't be in the trade, but I think all of them come from a place of their heart that they want to be better. If you ask a
I do.
new hire in the trade, what is something as a business owner I can provide for you? One of the things that they will always tell you is training and improving their skills. They
Mhm.
always want to learn more and be better at what they're doing. And they always look up to those guys that know all the stuff. And, I
Mhm.
do too, to this day. I mean, the guys that, oh, it's a bad board. They go there and they just rip off all the wires. I'm like, what are you doing? Wait. We didn't know where those wires go. And they're just like,
Yeah.
no, I know what I'm doing. But, often I think where the heart gets damaged is just the life environment that they're in most of the time. It's like they like you were talking earlier, like, why aren't you home? Why do you have to run this other call? Like you talk about a heart of a guy that it's 6 o'clock at night and you call him up and say, hey, Joey, we got one more for you. They almost always, they may not like it, but they go do it. And
No.
they're sacrificing their family time,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And the drive and motivation of an individual in this trade to do better, to provide, and it's always to provide for their family.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, the stories these guys tell me and their
Mhm.
hardships that they tell me and share with me in the trucks is unbelievable to me. And I think they like working with me because I'm relatable. I was in their shoes. I did that stuff. I was a tech. I lived paycheck to paycheck. I worked really hard to get better at what I was doing, just for the sake of my family at that time, you
Mhm.
know? So I don't think there's any challenge of a heart of a technician or what they're doing out there, but they're always trying to do the best that they can. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the owners and the people around them need to understand that. I work with
Mm-hmm.
service managers too, and they constantly call me like, da 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 is doing this, da 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 is saying this. I'm like, you gotta understand, dude, like maybe he's having a bad day. Like, is
Yeah.
that normal character for him? No, like he's just frustrated and they're by themselves all day. So they don't get to talk and vent this stuff
Yep.
out. And
Yep.
so, but yeah, I think that's a great question. Like uh, if we can tap into appreciating our technicians more, rewarding them for their efforts, acknowledging them for their efforts,
Mhm.
that goes a million miles. That goes a million miles. I mean, I've done
Well, and
surveys
that
with
if we could
guys.
protect them and recognize that they are taking bullets for us on the front lines and protect them. So instead
Mhm,
of, hey, can you do this last call at 7 o'clock at night? Say, no, Mr. Customer. My guy's been out there all day long and I'm going to send him
mhm.
home to his family. Can you wait till,
Sure,
right? Or
absolutely.
are you willing to pay over, the emergency overtime fees and late night fees and things like that, right? So the company, as companies, we've got to protect our team, and our team needs to know that we protect them. And we need to protect their home life, and we need to protect, their work-life balance and respect that. I think in all industries, corporate America has really taken advantage of the home
Yeah,
work-life balance, but we need to protect that. And when we do, our team will really go to bat for the company and they will go out there and out there and out there and serve, but they need to know we have their back.
yeah. I mean, what my mentor and probably closest thing to a second dad that I have is Frank Harrison, and I was a general manager for his company for 4 years when it was a very virgin company. We did a lot of changes. I mean, one of my greatest experiences in this business for those 4 years, and he shared with me as a young general manager at the time. He told me, and he was very, very um, direct on this. He
Mhm.
said, Matthew, we don't have 32 employees that we have to take care of. We have 32 families that we have to take care of.
Mhm.
And we harbored that kind of culture, meaning that it is not okay for an install team to go home today because we don't have work for them.
Mhm.
Like we will figure something out. We'll have them clean up the shop or something. But the way that got relatable as we became a stronger and stronger team was, hey, service guys, if we don't have some stuff happen today for tomorrow, we're going to have guys that may not work. And so you have one or two options. We can work on our skills, do the right thing, and let's get some stuff moving forward for tomorrow. Or I'll tell you what, I'll send you guys home and let them run your service calls.
Mhm.
And they would just say, gotcha, boss.
Yes.
And we would fill that schedule by then. And our goal as a company, even in and we this was in Palm Springs, California, in the desert. Our goal was to have our technicians home by 5:30, 6 o'clock every day in the middle of summer,
Mhm.
and we were pretty successful at doing so.
Mhm. I love that. Having the whole team in alignment, it takes time. This is not an overnight thing. I know it's not.
Oh no,
But if we can get better at communicating with our company as leaders, so then even the office team knows, oh, there's nothing for them to do tomorrow. I have to stay here and get that board booked. I've got to call up on these leads and I have to do stuff because if we're treating the whole team that we are a team and we win together and we lose together, I don't want so and so to have to go home tomorrow or me have to go home in their place, right? I like that mentality of we have to win as a team and look out for each other. And that board's got to be full. And it's not just one person's
absolutely,
job; it's the whole
yeah.
company's job, right? It's the office, it's the field, it's the techs. Um, the My nanny, she's going to night school this summer to become a massage therapist. And I was out running the other day, and she leaves at 5:30, so I've got to get home by 5:30. But if I want to get a run in, because I'm starting to consider training for my first marathon, and I'm
Oh
putting that
geez.
out there lightly because I don't want the full
Hey,
accountability of it, but
you
maybe.
got to put it out there. So let's change that. You have started training for your first marathon.
Yes. Yes. So that's right. Training for my first marathon. Thank you. Correct me, hold me in my place. And
That's
so
right.
I got to get home and get my run in before my nanny leaves at 5:30. And so she decided she's going to go to night school. She's going to become a massage therapist and doesn't really have a ton of people in her corner. And so as I'm on my run the other day, I'm running and all of a sudden, you know how you just start thinking like when your best thinking space, and running is my best
Yeah.
thinking space. So I'm thinking about the new flat rate. I'm thinking about partners. I'm thinking about customers. And then all of a sudden it's like downloaded. I'm like, I know how to blow up her business. And so I come running in the door, it's 80 degrees. I'm all sweaty and gross. And I'm like, Jasenia, I know how to make you the most successful massage therapist ever. But this does relate. I promise it does. It does relate with service
Oh,
because it's a service company. But I was like, you are so lucky. You have a 6-month run rate. Nobody else does. And so these technicians or these people that start their own company, they don't always have 6 months. I'm in school for 6 months and come January 1st, I have to have customers. What am I going to do? I'm like, so
mhm.
this is what you can do to start getting your customers by January 1st. And January 1st, your board needs to be full. And so we started up top. I said, how much money do you want to make next year? All right. How many calls can you do a day? All right. And so we broke that out. And then, all right, not all your friends and family are going to use your service and you don't know enough people. So how many prospects do you need? So we calculated that. So you just start, it's all math. Same with the service company. How
Yeah.
many prospects do you need? How many contact points do you need to be able to get the number of calls that you need to fill your board? And once we do that, then we can work on the communication paths to make sure that we book it, and we can work on our maintenance plans and some of our recurring revenue and things like that. But it was so fun to think about, her business as a service business and build this with her. But
Yeah.
I said, but right now you're growing your skill, which this is what you said. And this is why I'm tying it back to this, that these technicians are trying to climb. They want to grow their skill so that they can provide a better future for their family. And that is
Hmm.
awesome. And so we want to make sure that we recognize that and we support that they need time to hone in and become an expert in their craft. They need training. They need these trainers to come in and to help them grow. And there is a better future in the future for them, that this is the best industry they can be in. I love the trades. I love that my nanny is going to become a massage therapist. And she's like, well, I didn't really do college. Good. You are going into
Yeah.
a trade. You can
Yeah.
blow it up and be what, like, I'm thrilled for her. And I'm thrilled that she has 6 months. And so for these techs, whether they're maintenance techs or they're, whatever level they are, they have time and look ahead. Where do you want to be? This is training. This is growing. This is good. So I could talk
Yeah.
all day.
No, I think that's great. And just a little side note, my daughter's in massage therapy school right now as
Neat.
well. And we should hook those two up. And so then maybe
Yeah.
they're accountable for things because she's going to finish in November. So they're kind of on a very similar path.
Well, I
So
love it. So what I told her to do, I said, you need a video log in school every single day. I said, every day, hey, this is what we're learning. This is what this muscle is. This is what it does. And then start building up your following, because by the time you're done, people will see the education. They will have
yeah,
right then they'll have that know, like, and trust with you, and they'll be, then you can start booking your board ahead of time. Hey, who's ready for this? Who's ready for that? There's all
yeah,
kinds of things. We can talk marketing on that all day long, but I was like, you
yeah,
need to video log the education, and these technicians in these companies as a marketing, know, like, trust as well. When they're training and learning new tools and skills and things, I love video log. I love, hey, technician, hey, I've actually never seen this before. We're working on it today. We're learning how to do this, and putting that out on social media, letting people see
right.
what you're learning, how you're enhancing your skills. I think we all need to do way more of it, because that's what the world wants to see, just the authentic
Yeah.
of what's going on
Well,
out
that's the thing is that, the owners, God bless them, they're wearing 15 hats most
there.
of the time, they're developing their businesses. And it's just like they learn what needs to happen, but then how do they translate that to the team, And so it's just what ends up happening a lot of times is, well, we need more leads, we need more this, we need more this. And it's just like, well, if a guy's not like suited for that, you can't expect him to do that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if no one's ever shown him how to, it's just like you can look at it from a technical perspective. Hey, go change that blower motor. Well, if he's never changed a blower motor, he's going to be freaking out. So
yeah.
service managers need to be spending their time in the field, showing the technical side. And let me handle the guys for the the soft skills and the communication skills, but man, those things together, and then you start developing really, really good technicians.
Mhm.
So on both
Yeah.
sides.
Alignment's so important too for everybody on the team to understand. So, I love how you talked about threading in the beginning. We're threading, the customer's going to talk to the office, they're going to talk to the field, they're going to talk to management at some point or install teams. And so we have to train our whole company so that the customer experience as they thread through your company, the customer experience is elevated the whole way through. And we've got to have alignment so that the office and the field and the leadership, they know what each other is doing so they can
Hmm.
support each other. Oh, I know that this technician, is really working to grow their skill on lead turnover. And so I can support in that. Hey, here's a good call I think I should share with them. But we want to work together, and that comes with communication and alignment, making sure if people don't know the vision and where we're going as a company, then how can they help participate?
Yeah, no, it is, and I can't agree with you more. It's very difficult to get all those factors into place, and making sure you get that kind of alignment, and
Mhm.
it all stems from leadership. I mean, I think a lot of owners should go invest in leadership training,
Mhm.
because it's like
I do too.
that was what Frank taught me too, was there's a difference between being a leader and a manager. A
Mhm.
manager manages the people and the functions, but a leader, the people will follow.
Mhm.
And so you ask those things of your team or whatever, that's where the true things come into place. So our philosophy in general it wasn't a top-down leadership. Most people will look at, hey, you have the president or the owner, then you got your GM, and then you got your ops managers, and it goes like that, and then your customers are down here. We invert that triangle.
Mhm.
So still works from top down, but our top are our customers. And then it's our support staff to the customers, which is the office staff that's, relating. Then it's the technicians, and then it's the upper management and the owners down at the bottom. Our job as the ownership and leaders is to support that cast,
Mhm.
and so when you have that kind of mentality walking through the door every single day, you are no different. And I felt this way too, as any time I've been a manager, I am no different than the brand new install helper we hired
Mhm.
today, you
Mhm.
know? And so one of the things that we would do, we called it the Watusi. So in our shop, we didn't have a big trash can, area. We just had one bin there, and we had at the time 4 install crews. So that thing would fill up very quickly in the mornings, and they
Yeah.
came every day. And we would have these young guys come in, and they'd be wandering around looking for what to do, because we were like an anthill. Everyone was doing what they're supposed to do. Like, what should I be doing, boss? Type of thing. And as I look over at the trash, say, well, why don't you make some more room in the trash can? Well, it's full. Come here, let me show you the Watusi. And so Frank would do it too, and I would do it too. We would climb into the trash can, and there was a chain link fence up above it, and we would hold onto the fence and just start, just smashing down the trash. And we would say, that's what we call the Watusi. All right. So you should never have to ask again if there's not something to do, And then we would laugh, because then we would see somebody else showing the new guy, the Watusi, and how it's a simple thing, but makes you laugh, but it's a good story, but that's how leadership works.
Mhm.
You have to have the ability to think about that person you just hired as just as an equal to anybody else along with the team. No one is higher than the other.
Mhm.
And if you have that happening in your company, then you need to put a check to that really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. The Watusi, that's funny.
That's the Watusi. So many
Um,
stories I could share. So many stories I could
I
share.
like stories. Well, Matt, if anybody wants to learn more about your company or reach out to you and get some help, how can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously online at coachtrademotivate.com. You could request some information there. You could reach out to me directly. I guess you don't have my number, but maybe we could post a number to call directly to either
Yep.
Marin or myself, our training coordinator. If you have any questions or want to know what the training looks like, we have a full menu, from virtual training to on-site training to full business consultation, which includes all three of those things. And so, yeah, we've had a lot of success with the companies that invest and want to move forward. and we can share those successes with you. And, thanks for having us on board here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome. I appreciate your time and being here. It's so technical these days. There's so much AI and automation. Everybody wants to know the latest and the greatest. But I think our conversation really just stuck with the humanity of where we still are as businesses today. It's people working with people, and we are not losing that anytime soon. So thanks for the
Yeah,
conversation. Good to see you on here.
absolutely. Thanks, Danielle.
If you want to learn more about the new flat rate, go to thenewflatrate.com. Lastly, if you want to learn more about CTM, go to coachtrainmotivate.com or give them a call at 209-304-5450.